social studies today. You need to get out this worksheet. We're going to look at this. Oops, it's upside down. There we go. That one. This one you were supposed to submit on Wednesday. If you submitted it on time before watching this video, which means by lunch, then you get full credit because I'm going over it. So if you're going to submit it after I already went over it, I can't give you full credit because I'm going to assume that you copied those answers down. It's important that you do the work when it's assigned and get it completed as necessary. Otherwise, you're going to get behind and then you're trying to get caught up. I posted a message that Unit 3 stuff in Social Studies, let me go back to that page here on Schoology, which would be this folder here, Unit 3 Review, Chapters 5 through 7. If you're missing any work from here, which everything's in harmony, so you can check there. If it shows a 0, that means I didn't get it from you. You have to message me to let me know you turned it in, okay? If you have something missing from this Unit 3, I think there were 3 or 4 items I took a grade on. It needs to get done by Sunday evening, because Monday morning, I'm going to close that folder, and then we're done. Okay, we have too much stuff going on here. If you're not done with something in here and still behind, then you're not going to get caught up once we get going here in this Chapter 8, and this Revolutionary War stuff. So, Unit 3, any missing assignments, due Sunday. All right, so today, we're getting back into our Chapter 8. You read Lesson 1 Wednesday. You should have opened up this Chapter 8 note organizers. Get it submitted.
Miss Bob, I can't find it.
Kind of late, but here's a copy. And those of you here in class would have received a paper copy. Those of you at home could have printed a paper copy or used it here on Notability, and then I had suggested saving these in a important or a spot you remember, somewhere safe, because you'll want these for our Unit 4 test over 8 and 9. Okay, and these will come in handy. So we're going to look at this, and then those of you who are here at school have or will receive, if you have not, a paper copy of these items, these note sheets. We won't be able to do all of them today with Lesson 1. A lot of these we will read about in Lesson 2. Okay, some are in 3. But for today, right now, we're going to work on this first, talking about that French and Indian War, which is what Lesson 1 is mainly about. So what can you tell me about this war? It says, which countries or people were involved in the French and Indian War? John? Yeah, we had quite a few, right? We had Spain, Britain, France, and then you have your Native Americans, the Iroquois, who supported both sides, but they helped more the French than they did Britain. Okay? Britain, France, Native Americans, and Spain. This should have already been done, guys. What you need, Kenny?
I just put America, is that fine?
No, because it's not America yet. Okay, it was Britain, France, the Native Americans, and Spain. Those were the countries that were over here fighting in this French and Indian War. Sean?
I put 2 countries and 2 people. Is that okay? Because there was 4 dots. I put
Well,
France, Britain, and Ben Franklin. Who was one?
Those weren't 2 people necessarily that were fighting in it. There was mainly countries. People by Native Americans. That was a group of people that were fighting. Okay, so those are the 4 you need down. What were the causes of the French and Indian War? What were they fighting over? What was the issue, Riker?
Land, and they wanted land, and also they wanted more wealth.
They did? Valuables. Good. Okay, what land specifically? There was a specific area of land that Britain and France started fighting over. They both wanted to control that area. Jackson? There was a proclamation that we talk about as far as west of the Appalachian Mountains. John? Yeah, which is west, right? So it's the Ohio River Valley over there, and eventually this land gets put into that proclamation. We'll talk about that maybe later. So the Ohio Valley is what they're fighting over. Okay, they both want this land. Both the French and the Britain want this land. Okay, and Native Americans want to protect it for themselves, right? Okay, so they help France with that, where the colonists are fighting for the land because they want to live on it. Okay, which this controlling this area or more of this land, like Riker said, gives them more wealth, right? They have more valuable furs over there. It helps with trading. So those are some other things by those dots you could have written down. Okay, both countries want the furs. Okay, fish, so wealth. Okay, if they can have more of these items, they can sell those.
And get more wealth. And sell them.
Right, and they wanted that land, that Ohio Valley. Okay? So now we get into that little chart down there, that little box. The results of the French and Indian War. What happens because of this war? Emmy?
They passed the Sugar Act to raise more money for the Britain in 1764.
Right, so they pass, the British ends up winning, right? We'll get there in a minute. And they end up passing the Sugar Act because they needed more money for what? Why did they pass the Sugar Act on those colonists? What did they want? They wanted more money for what? Riker, where are your notes? Why are we not adding to our notes and following along? Brendan? What was the point of it? It's a tax. So the Sugar Act was a tax. It's the beginning of the colonists' issues with the British government. What was that tax supposed to do for Britain? Emmy? They had to pay for the war, right? Britain had to pay for the war that just happened over in North America. Well, they decided we're going to start taxing the colonists and get more money from them. The war was on their land, right? Why shouldn't they have to pay for it? So that was the Sugar Act. That was one result of the war. What ended the war? We need to go back to that. What ended the war? Josh?
They split the land.
I didn't. Who splits the land?
The France and Britain.
Not France and Britain. Somebody else does. Jackson?
Native Americans.
No, not Native Americans and the colonists. June? Spain and not France. Spain and who, Nick?
Britain.
Yeah, Spain and Britain split land. So Spain gets land west of the Mississippi, okay, and Britain gets the land east of the Mississippi. And they signed the Treaty of Paris. So, kind of ironically, they signed it in France, and France didn't get anything, right? Okay, so they signed the Treaty of Paris. It ends the war. Britain wins control of that Ohio Valley from France, okay, and Spain gains some things as well. But eventually, what happens? What happens eventually? Sean? Well, France does, yep. They do lose all land to America. And Britain gained what? What did Britain gain? Go ahead.
Almost all of Canada.
Yeah, they gain all of Canada. French lands east of the Mississippi River to Spanish Florida, right? France loses just about everything to North America. That's on page 297, underneath that little tiny paragraph that says the Treaty of Paris. Okay? That's kind of where we're at. So pages 296 and 297 talk about the French and Indian War. Okay, who was involved, who wins in the end. So it's called the French and Indian War because Britain is against the French and the Native Americans. Okay? Spain kind of comes in to help, and then they kind of take over that land from France as well. Yes?
Are we technically called Native American?
No. Well, not like some of us might be, but
Because we're native to America.
not necessarily.
Relatives.
If you have relatives that came from Europe way back somewhere, then you're not a native here. I mean, I get what you're saying, like you are now because you were born here, but you might have ancestry from a different,
I
Culture.
can't think that far back.
and some people may not know that far back. That's a long time, a long ways away, or a long time ago. All right, let's keep going. So the French and Indian War leads to some other things. We had the Sugar Act. Okay, you should have written that down. That was the tax that they put in place, Britain puts in place to charge the colonists to pay for their war. Okay, that is the first of many taxes. That's what the book tells you. Okay, the first of many taxes is the Sugar Act. The Treaty of Paris is signed. That goes in another box. Okay, Britain and Spain get some different parts of the land. There's two more things that happen. Two more things that start to come to light. Sean?
They start fighting in Europe.
It does. The French and Indian War does eventually move over to Europe, but it still kind of ends all at the same time. That's where Spain kind of gets involved. What else happens? Where do the colonists start to think? The Sugar Act is put into place. Are they happy about it?
No,
No. Why not? Josh?
because they were there first, and it's not fair to them because they own the land.
Well, it's not necessarily that the colonists were there first. What do the colonists think? Sean?
They don't have much money in the first place, and then they're having to pay it to the Britain.
Right, so they're having to pay what little money they have, right? They're just getting started. We're just over here settling this land, okay? And who wanted to be in that war? Did the colonists say, yes, we want this land? No, that was Britain saying they wanted that, right? So the colonists start to kind of feel like, maybe we don't need Britain. Maybe we should be our own country. Okay, that feeling starts to come to light. That would go in a box. There's one more thing, and we kind of talked about it with Jackson. I mentioned it. What happens to the land west of the Mississippi? Riker?
It gets played.
It does. It's claimed, and then Britain decides to do what with it?
And also, isn't,
Where are your notes?
I drew in my desk.
Well, get them out. They should be out on your desk.
Didn't the Native Americans want to share the land, or did
They did, but the colonists didn't. The Native Americans thought everybody should be able to use the land, but the colonists did not.
So the colonists went over to the Native Americans, and then they brought the diseases.
Right.
Did Britain go to the colonists and then they gave colonists diseases, so they went up.
Well, the colonists are from Europe and Britain and England, so those people are coming from that area over to America. That's who's bringing the diseases over to the Native Americans,
Yeah.
or who were bringing the diseases over. Okay.
So it's like COVID.
So, page 298 says more troubles. Then there's some other headings. What else happens because of the French and Indian War? We have three things. We need one more. John? Say it again. Yeah, we have a proclamation of 1763. What was that? That's on page 298. It's the heading, the Proclamation of 1763. King George III decides to do what? Jackson? That's right. Yeah, the Appalachian Mountains. So all the lands west of the Appalachian Mountains belong to the Native Americans. That's what the king decides. So are the colonists going to be happy about this? No. Strike two, right? They had the Sugar Act. He told them, you have to pay for the war. It was on your land. And now they're saying, you don't get any of that land. We want it. You have to pay for that war, but you can't have that land. Okay? So the colonists are not real happy with the king right now. As we end this war, things start to change. Okay? So that was this paper that you did. You have with you then today this. So French and Indian War, when did it start? What year did it start, Maya? 1754, it's at the top of this page that we just went over. So 1754, I'd write in there, what year did it end? When did they sign that Treaty of Paris? Kenny?
1763.
Yep, so it went from 1754 to 1763. Put that in that box.
1763.
Hmm?
Wait, what did you write it?
1754 to 1763. I would write it smaller, I wouldn't write it huge. These are just some quick reminders about the French and Indian War. That was the year.
What year did it end?
Ah, look, I said it 2 or 3 times now, look. What was it for? What were they fighting over? Nick? What land? Specifically, what land, Claire? Right, the Ohio Valley. So, fought over Ohio Valley. You can look these up, it's in the book. They're on this other paper we just did. Just putting them in another place. Who wanted the Ohio Valley? Main 2 countries that started this war. Main 2, Kenny.
France and Britain.
Right. The French and Britain were the main 2 countries that were fighting in that French and Indian War. So, 1754 to 1763, fought over Ohio Valley, Britain, and France. That's what you're going to put next to French and Indian War. Now we're going to talk about the Sugar Act again, and that's the only other one we can do right now from lesson 1. Alright, Sugar Act, what was that? What was the Sugar Act? John? Shh. It was a tax on what? It's called the Sugar Act. What's the tax on, you think? Riker?
Land?
Not land. Josh?
The colonists?
Nope. Sean? Sugar. It's called the Sugar Act. It's the tax on sugar and molasses. So they were taxing any of that the colonists were importing in.
I didn't know that.
Okay.
That's actually
That's what it was taxing, the sugar, right? And why? Why were they taxing this? Sugar and molasses that was coming in. Check my notes. Check the book. With the same hand up. Maya. Right. Britain wanted to pay for the war. So they taxed sugar and molasses.
Wait, Britain?
Britain, yeah. They taxed the colonists. So that's the Sugar Act. So the rest of these, the Stamp Act, Sons of Liberty, the Townsend Acts, and then on the back you have the Boston Massacre, the Tea Act, Boston Tea Party, Intolerable Acts, First Continental Congress, and Battle of Lexington and Concord. We will get to those as we read lessons 2, 3, 4, and 5 in chapter 8. So you're not going to get it all done today. That paper's done. This paper needs to go then into your folder. Okay, if you're here at school, I gave you a folder. That's where this is going to go, along with this paper that we just went over. Okay? So you have those for when we read lesson 2 next week. I think we get through 2. Well, we might start 3. I don't know. Okay? Those are notes you can use on today's assignment. You have a worksheet today, 8-1. Remember, it is important that you are reading these lessons, using the information in the text. If you don't know for this worksheet, go back and look. Okay, split screen. Use the information in the book. Use your notes to answer those questions. Right? So, 8-1 is your social studies assignment for today.